Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again on this important endeavor of learning Torah weekly. I had an inspiration yesterday, and I just want to share with you guys this inspiration I had before we get to the halacha. And the inspiration I had, I was learning with someone yesterday that we've been learning together for a little over 2 years. And we are almost finished what we're learning. The book, well, like we are almost finished in like a couple of months, right? We have a little less than 100 pages left, right? Or just a little, yeah, just under 100 pages left, right? But we're literally almost at the end of what Pirkei Avos. We're actually learning together Pirkei Avos, and we've been doing it for the last almost two years. And we're like talking about, that like, wow, look, Pirkei Avos is a big thing. It took us 6 years, but okay, let's just leave that alone, right? But this is a one-on-one. It's a little different when it's a one-on-one, right? But we're just reflecting on, when you do something consistent, all of a sudden things become doable. And please mute yourselves if you have background noise. I really appreciate that. And I was telling him an inspiration that I had, and it's something that we've talked about in the past also, but I think it's just good to every once in a while give ourselves a pat on the back and a boost for the future, right? And that is like this. It says that our daily Minion, right, our morning Minion is, the Talmud tells us, is instead of the Korban Tamid, the morning sacrifice that was brought every day, right? Every day there's a morning sacrifice that was brought, right? And sometimes I feel like a sacrifice having to wake up at 6:30 in the morning, but okay, right? But there's a sacrifice that was brought every day. And since the temple was destroyed, right? So the rabbis, there's a mitzvah to pray throughout the day biblically. The rabbis then went ahead and said, let's organize it. The rabbis of the Great Assembly, and they created the morning service, the afternoon service, and the morning service is instead of the Korban Tamid, the morning sacrifice. The afternoon is instead of the Korban Ben Arbaim, the Korban that's brought in the afternoon. And then the Ma'ariv was added on a little later. It's not as an obligation as the first two. Now it's become a custom halacha. Now I don't want to get into the technicalities of that. But the morning service is instead of the Korban Tamid. The question I always had is, very interesting that the name of the sacrifice was called Korban Tamid, the ongoing. Tamid means ongoing. How would you say the morning sacrifice? Korban Boker, right? Boker is the morning, right? So why don't we call it Korban Boker? Well, in the afternoon, we call it Korban Ben Arbaim, in the afternoon. So call it the morning sacrifice. Why do we call it the Tamid sacrifice, the ongoing sacrifice? And there's many different ideas, but one of the ideas is that the Torah, God is trying to tell us, what's the power? Every sacrifice, of course, is, and we're not learning about sacrifices, and that will take a whole series to learn about sacrifices and what they represent, and more than that, there's tractates of Talmud on it, right? But what's one of the powers of the Korban Tamid, the ongoing, the morning sacrifice? The commentators say is that word Tamid. And what's Tamid? Tamid means to say ongoing, consistent. Do you know an interesting tidbit? Right? And an unbelievable accomplishment, that the morning sacrifice from the first time it was brought, right? Morning sacrifice from the first time it was brought, when the Jewish people inaugurated the Mishkan and Aaron brought the morning sacrifice, until the last time, till the first time there was a break. You know when that was? Know how long? Anybody want to take a guess? Anybody? Come on, throw out some numbers.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, the question is, for how long did the Jewish people bring without being broken, of bringing the morning sacrifice, which is called the Korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice, right? How long of a span did they bring it? Was it a year? Was it 5 years? Right? Much 400 years. 400 years of consistency without any break, bringing the same sacrifice over and over again. That's what Jim says. And survey says
7.
Anybody?
I was going to say 700, but I'm wrong.
Oh, Suzette's saying 7. Actually, you're closer, right?
Oh, really?
700 is closer. We're getting somewhere. Anybody else? No one else wants to throw a number in the pot? One more guess. Come on, someone take a guess.
900.
900. Okay, so it's in between 700 and 900.
800.
Calculation. Let's do a quick calculation, okay, guys? The Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years, right? They built the tabernacles in the second year, right? So for 40 years in the desert, they brought the sacrifice. They were in Israel, in the land of Israel, until the first temple was built for a little over 400 years. The first temple was up for 410 years, right? The sacrifice was stopped when the Babylonians sieged Jerusalem. And in the beginning, they were still giving them an animal. They were lifting an animal up the wall, and they were giving them gold and cash. Back. But then the Babylonians got smart, and they realized that there's something spiritual going on here. So they decided to not keep to their deal, and they didn't give an animal for the Jewish people to bring the sacrifice. And that was the first time that the Korban Tamid was not brought, approximately about 840 years. Right, give or take a year or two. For 840 years, the same Korban, the same rituals, the same practice was done without a break. That, my friends, is the power of doing something consistently. If it's consistently every day, if it's consistently every week, if it's consistently once a month, whatever your schedule is, doing something consistently has its own. What is that power? So the analogy I like giving, right, is because, is driving. Think about it. When you drive, right, let's say you're going down to Miami, right? So Miami is theoretically doable, right, in one drive. You fill up before, right? You make sure you use the bathroom, right? And you, in theory, you could do it in one drive, right? Depends, where Miami, it depends on traffic, but, theoretically, about 5 hours, let's give or take. Let's be conservative, at about 5 hours, right? So let's say you're a safe driver. You're driving 78 miles an hour. Okay, you're driving 78 miles an hour, right? Speed limit 70, so you're going 78. Now, if you go straight, you'll get there in X amount of time. But if you stop off, even if you do this, the roadside, even if you park on the side of the road, right, for a minute, right? If you pull into a rest stop, right, and you're not even getting off the highway, just one of those highway rest stops, you don't have to wait by a light, and you don't have to make a right turn, and you don't have to find the gas station or whatever it is, right? You're off for 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes, right, extend your trip by almost 15 to 20 minutes, even longer. Why? So just 5 minutes extra, because 1 + 1 is not 2. We're not talking about math. Doing one thing and then another thing is not the same as doing something straight. When you make that stop, when you're driving, you've lost your rhythm, as we call it, right? You lost your rhythm, and now you have to make up the time because you have to start up again. You have to get into that momentum, and that time of 5 minutes is more than 5 minutes. And that's the same thing with spirituality. That's the same thing with growth. Well, we're doing something consistently, and that's the power of the Korban Tamid. Now, we go to services every day. We are learning a class every day. We make sure we make a blessing every day. We make sure we wear a kippah every day. We make sure we dress modestly every day. We make sure that we are, whatever it is that we're doing, but we're doing it consistently. Whatever we're working on, we have to keep on growing, but whatever we're working on, we're doing consistently. We get into that groove, we get into that consistency. You start growing by tenfolds. Right? It's much more than what you're actually doing, because you have that momentum and it's growing and it's going faster and it's going better and there's no break in the chain. That was the power of the Korban Tamid, of doing it on a regular basis, and therefore the Torah does not call it a Korban Boker, the morning sacrifice, because what's the real power behind the sacrifice is not that it's in the morning. What's the real power behind the sacrifice is that it was done daily. Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, Passover, Rosh Hashanah, doesn't make a difference. We added other sacrifices for those, but it was done consistently without a break. And that, my friends, is the power of doing something consistently. So I just want to tell you guys to give yourselves a pat on the back and an encouragement for the future, right? Doing this class, being part of this group on a weekly basis, right? Yes, we all have to, miss here and miss there. That's life. but on a weekly basis, we're here, and we make that effort to be part of it. There's no greater power than that. And whatever other mitzvot we do, whatever other thing that we're doing, you have to remember, right, that there's an energy, a power, a rhythm of doing something on a consistent basis. So Yasher Koach, kol hakavod to all of us, right? And let's make sure that this continues onward. So that was my introduction for today. Any questions or comments on that? Anybody?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I just want to say I just really appreciate what you just said. And what I really get out of this class, are so many of the, your personal insights. And I know you're a rabbi, so you have deep insights, but you really do make it a very teachable time for us. And what I really, really like is that the desire for each of us to embrace holiness, you make it real to us, how we can do that on a daily basis. It's not, just, I'd say, secular content. It's really living it. So that was, I gained a lot out of that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Suzette. That's really kind of you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, ready to rock and roll, guys? Let's get cracking. Okay, so we are on day 82. All right, day 82. Day 82, page 238. Day 82, 238. Okay, so the scenario is like this, and this is an interesting scenario. We're getting into a little different topic than we had in the past. Let me just make sure. Okay, good. All right, we're getting to a little different topic than we had in the past. But it's as important, and it could be even something that is sometimes even harder to do. And the scenario is like this. The way they talk, we're talking to your neighbor at a simcha, you're talking to your neighbor when your kids are playing in the front yard, right? You're talking to your neighbor, one evening or Friday night or whatever it is, who cares? You're talking to your neighbor, right? Another neighbor whom you both thought was going to be there, right, is absent, right? I wonder what happened to him, you ask, right? You ask, I wonder what happened, right? What happened? So to your surprise, your neighbor says, oh, him? When was he ever okay? He then begins informing you of the missing neighbor's various, right, emotional challenges, right, other things, right, whatever the scenario is, never on time, right? You can't rely on that guy, right, or that gal. You can never. They always say they're going to volunteer, but they always like show up 2 minutes before and just there for the picture, right? Or they're always, right, they say they're going to have a play date, but they never show up for the play date, and they just leave you high and dry. They always come pick up their kids late, blah blah blah, right? You could start, filling in the gap, right? Because I'm sure we have all had this experience. At least once in our lifetime, right? Where, either you're saying something or, right? But that's not the case right now, because we're already now on day 82. So we're not going to say something because we know there's no toelis, and we know there's no purpose of it, and it's just being a gossiper, right? So therefore we are not going to say something, right? But your neighbor, right, didn't come to our class Wednesday morning, right? And therefore, right, he or she, is talking. So now, of course, you, right, know that you're not allowed to believe, right? Or, even if you know for sure the facts are true, as we spoke about last class, right? Not blame the person or realize that there might be other circumstances and things like that, right? But now you have another challenge. The challenge is like this, right? Should you report this or shouldn't you report this, right? Should you go ahead and tell your neighbor, right, or your friend, right, Cham, your uncle, I want to let you know what the Uncle Pfefferkorn told about you, right? Right, Malki, I want to tell you what Freda said about you, right? Whatever it is, right? Right? Shouldn't the subject of this report know that someone is out there spreading negative information? So the way they pose a question is actually makes it a little more like we want to answer them, right? How do they say, shouldn't the subject of this report know that someone is out there spreading the negative information? I said, should you go ahead and tell the person? And that sounds like you're just, again, over here, we're giving it a little twist. Like I'm doing it litoelis, I'm doing it for a good purpose. Shouldn't the person know that someone's spreading things about them? So Jim is shaking his head no. We'll leave it at that. No, Jim, you want to explain?
A long time ago, and I don't remember exactly the right way it was phrased, but they said it takes two people to bring bad news, one to say it, one to bring it to you and tell you about it. And from that, I drew that you're not supposed to be the one to bring the bad news, or not bad news, gossip. That's what it is. I mean, it's lush and hard.
Okay.
No, I don't think that would be, no.
Okay, so Jim is saying no, and he feels that this is still just gossip, right? What's it to us that the person knows that someone else is saying? What, he's gonna avoid him? He's what? He's gonna, right? There's no purpose. It's just being another gossiper. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? Anybody?
Okay.
Go ahead, Kyla.
If you bring it to the other person, then you're just creating a situation where there is going to be hatred and discontent between the two of them.
Okay, so you're agreeing with Jim?
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay, good. Suzette, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to add that you're not supposed to believe everything you hear. So I guess on that premise, you're not supposed to act on it if it can cause damage to the other person or, hurt. So I'd say no. You don't
Okay,
do
I
it.
just want to nitpick on your words, Marilyn. I'll take you for. I'll take your comment in 1 second. I may just nitpick on your words for a second. I know we typically don't like doing that, but I just want to bring a point out. I hope you don't mind. You started your point by saying that we're not supposed to believe everything that we hear, right? That's correct, right? And 100%, we spoke about that. And let's say I don't believe everything I hear, but if you notice the way they phrased the question wasn't if you should believe what the person's saying, right? They phrased the question is, should you go and tell the person that is being talked about that someone is talking about them? So that has nothing to do with you believing what is being said or not being said. That you heard with your own ears and you had that conversation that the person told you, right, about that person, right? So that is the question over here, just to clarify that, right? The rest of your point is correct. Is aligned with what other people are saying. It's still no purpose for it, and you're just creating animosity amongst people. Right? I just wanted to clarify that, if you don't mind. Marilyn, what do you want to say?
Okay, well, why can't he go to this friend that the other person is talking about and say to him, well, we miss you, is everything okay? I don't see you, coming to our group or whatever it is. And then maybe something's going on with this person. So listen to what he has to say. And, if he does have a problem or something like that, then you can go back to that person and say, hey, look, this person, da, 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 da.
Okay, Marilyn, I just want to, first of all, Jim over here was like, that's an awesome thing to say, right? I just want to point that out. And I agree with you. And that is 100%. And that is something that one should always do. If you don't see someone at an event that they should be, even if no one is saying anything or not saying anything, right? It is the friendly thing, the community thing, the right thing to do is just follow up with them and say, hey, how you doing? Everything okay? I thought I would see you at this, at the community. I thought, let's make it into reality. I thought I would see you at the Eitz Chaim lunch, the Shabbos, at the speaker. Right, there's this phenomenal speaker, right? And I was almost positive that I would see you there. There's still time to register until 4 o'clock this afternoon, right? Not a plug at all, of course, right? But 100%, that is something that we should definitely do, right? If they have a good excuse, then you could even go back to the other person. If there is a conversation, hey, listen, you should watch what you say, because I spoke to that person. I just asked them where they were, and they had a legitimate reason, and they had a good reason. And it's not nice what you're saying, and blah blah blah. Question
Can
is,
I just, from a personal experience, how valid?
Bonnie, just one second. Let me just finish my thought, and then
Okay.
I want to hear you, right? But I just want to point out, Marilyn, what you're saying is 100% true, and it's the right thing to do, and it's the menschlich thing to do, and it's the way one should act. The question over here is, with all that being said, should you go ahead and tell that person that someone is talking? I just want to strengthen the question a little bit, right? And Bonnie, then I'll take your comment.
No, it's okay.
I just want to strengthen, and I'm not disagreeing with all of you, right? But I just want to strengthen the question a little bit, because if you remember, there are two seemingly contradictory verses that we have to reckon with. Number one is you shouldn't be a gossiper, right? And you shouldn't go ahead and say idle talk. You shouldn't go ahead and speak about people. And on the other hand is also, if you remember, right, part of the concept of toelas, of listening, is you shouldn't stand idle while your friend's blood is being spilled. Right, so the question is this considered like your friend's blood is being spilled because they are being talked about, right? So does it fall under the category of your friend's blood is being spilled? You have to go ahead and tell that person that they're being talked about. I just want to strengthen. I should have done that earlier. And I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it does. I'm throwing out a question, right? Sort of just trying to strengthen the question a little bit, right? Okay, Bonnie, go ahead.
No, it's just to reiterate what Marilyn said, because from a personal perspective, several years ago, we had a beautiful Shabbaton going on, and I happened to fall out of bed and fracture my femur. And so obviously I didn't make it to the Sunday morning shiur. And people were saying, oh, I thought Bonnie was coming. But nobody called.
Oh, wow.
So I think, I just want to, it really is, it behooves every single one of us that when somebody is not present to check to see if everything's okay.
Thank you. Sorry that happened to you, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's okay. We're good. We got over it.
Okay, so now that I strengthen the question a little bit, I see Jim deep in thought over here, right? Anybody want to change your opinion, or you guys are you still sticking with being not creating gossip for 500, or are you guys going to change your thoughts?
Okay, I'll speak up briefly. My first answer absolutely would have been no, you should not go to the person, but because it would cause animosity. But my second thought is maybe there would be some situation, although I don't know what that would be off the top of my head, where it could be a serious enough discussion that it might warrant trying to resolve it in some way beyond just not saying any more about it. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but I'm not sure that there wouldn't be some situation in which it would be appropriate to discuss.
That's
Jim is going to add in over here. Go ahead, Jim.
That's a real good point. Saying somebody, they've got some emotional problems, they don't come to things, is one thing. Saying, yes, I heard this person was a sexual predator at the city they came from. So does that now raise it to the level that something needs to be said? I'm not sure I have the answer to that, but what you brought up was a really good point.
Okay.
Heard Jim? Guys heard it?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody wanna add on to that or comment on that? Go ahead, Martha.
Okay, so I asked you about a year ago about a situation similar, and you said sit back and wait and watch. Keep an eye on, if possibly that's a true thing, and I'm still kind of waiting, but I feel kind of still that I didn't know how to untangle it, and I still don't. So
Okay, so let's see if we can help out a little bit. And again, every situation is different, like Jim is saying. Anybody else want to comment? Suzette, you want to change your thoughts, or you're good? Okay, how about Sima? You want to say you have any thoughts on this? Tylea, Bonnie, Sherry?
My go-to answer is if you're not sure, go ask the rabbi.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's why we're still employed. That's why we're still employed. But no, 100%. That's definitely a go-to answer, right? And thanks for pointing that out. Thank you. Okay, so let's take this an interesting question, right? Now that we made it a little more juicy, right, with adding on a little more excitement to the question, right? So the answer is in an overall scenario. Right, in your typical regular case, not with the extreme circumstances or different things going on. Right, the answer is right that this is considered under the concept of rechilus. It is forbidden under the Torah prohibition. Do not go as a gossiper amongst your people. The outcome of rechilus is an individual to stir animosity amongst Jews. Right, so that is a simple answer, the straightforward answer. The question is, there is more to this answer that needs to be said, right? And I want to expand on this a little bit, right? As Jim was pointing out, as Judy was pointing out, right? There's always cases and scenarios where the person doesn't need to know that someone is saying something, that they could defend themselves, that they could explain things. It is important sometimes, community members, it depends on your position. It depends on how it would affect your family, your friends, it affect your business, right? The contacts, your trust, right? So there are sometimes that what people are saying is more than just some, neighborly gossip, right, about you, that really won't make a difference. It will make a difference, but it won't really make a big difference in your life. It won't really affect you that much, and therefore, all you're going to do is just create one person having a fight with another person, right? And therefore, you're not allowed to go ahead and tell them, right? In a scenario like that, which is probably the majority of the time when people are just gossiping amongst people, because that someone in Kiddush is gossiping amongst you, and it's just their opinion and their thought is really not going to make a big difference in your work. You don't even see that the person doesn't work in your circles, right? It's not going to affect your kids in school or things like that. Most of the time, it's just gossip, right? There's two things. Number one, you should definitely tell this person that they are being a gossiper, right? So definitely tell the person that is speaking that what you're doing is wrong, right? You have no right to tell me this. There's no purpose for it. There's no benefit for it. There's no toelis. Why are you saying this, right? That's number one, right? Number two, what you could do is if you're friendly with that person and you're in the right position, you're the right time, it has to be made sure that it's in the right scenario, right? If it's Friday night after a couple of drinks, or if it's, you're going on, let's say you're jogging partners and you're really in it and, you're in a good mood, the person's in it, you have to know the right time, right? You're out for coffee and you're schmoozing, and right. It is important to sometimes tell someone, hey, just wanted to let you know, right? And I didn't believe what the person said, but I just wanted to let you know that, someone, and I'm not going to tell you who, there's no reason to tell you who, right? I just wanted to let you know that someone did make this comment about you, and it just wanted to make you aware of that, right? Because sometimes, even if the person's not like that, but sometimes we do things that could portray it, and it's good for the person to maybe try to work on their image or change their ways. They're not lazy and they're not irresponsible. Sometimes they do pick up their kids late a little bit, and that doesn't define them. They're busy and they have good reasons why they're doing it and things like that, right? But it's good for someone to know in a healthy way, and the person telling them in a healthy way. And again, not saying who said it. I'm not telling you, because there's no purpose for me to tell you who said it. Then I'll be speaking Lashon Hara. And I've said this to you. Why you want to know who said it? I'll be speaking Lashon Hara. It's not going to help you in any way. All you can do is going to get upset at that person, and it's not going to help you in any way to change who you are or to change your image or whatever it is, right? There's no benefit to it. Right. But at the same time, it is sometimes healthy, and you have to know if you're the right person. If you're not the right person, you never really speak to the person, right? To happen to be in the person that you're just, at Kiddush or whatever, and somebody just said, oh, I was wondering where that person is. And the person goes ahead and lays down on you, but you don't really know the person so well, right? You're not friendly with them that much. It's not your place at all to then go ahead and tell that person something, because even if you don't say the name, you're not the right person. They're going to get upset at you, right? You're still creating that animosity amongst our fellow brothers, right? So that's that's one point, right? One point is in a normal scenario where it's probably 90% of the times, right? Where you're not, like the halakha is that you're not allowed to say something, right? But you still have to go ahead and tell the person that is speaking, just like every other time, you are wrong over here. You are talking Lashon Hara. I don't believe what you're saying. Even if I do, even if I don't, doesn't make a difference. There's no purpose over here. There's no toelas. You are in the wrong of saying this. Number two, right? If you are the right person, your friend, blah, 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 you hang out together and you find the right time, you should tell the person that's being talked about that someone is talking about them, but not who. I'll mention the name because then you're being a gossiper, right? But if you feel that there would be, and if that's, and you wait and you see, and you start analyzing yourself, you see that the person, yeah, does have sometimes that they're late with their kids. They sometimes are, will let their kids, make a big mess in shul, or they sometimes, whatever it is, or they themselves, are very loud, act in certain ways sometimes, right? They don't mean malicious, they don't mean whatever, just, so then, you can go ahead and just say, hey, listen, I just want to, as a friend, I want to help you out, whatever. I'm just letting you know. I'm not telling you who, doesn't make a difference, but I'll be happy to work with you on this or whatever it is, if you're that kind of friend. All right, so that is on your typical normal case. Now, when you do have extreme circumstances, right, where it is coworkers talking, or if it's other business partners, or it's people that are you talking to, administrations for kids in school, or other situations where there could be a backlash in one way or another. You're trying to buy a house in a neighborhood and you need approval. It's some kind of closed community and you need approval of everybody, I don't know, right? And or other things like that, right? So then there could be a situation, and as Chayle said, every situation is different. There could be where you do have to go ahead and tell the person, because they do have to defend themselves and they do have to, confront their assailant, right, in a healthy manner, in a Torah way, right? But sometimes you do have to do that. I'll take your question in 1 second. Right, you do have to do that, and that's something that is important. So, in a scenario where it does start fringing on, where it could affect you, as Chayle has said, every situation is different, and you definitely should consult with a competent rabbi, right, and have that discussion. Martha, regarding your scenario, I do remember it was about someone told you that they stole money or something like that, if I remember correctly, right? What I was saying by keeping away, see if that's happening by you, right? And that's something that you could see. You check the books afterwards, right? You ask for receipts. You ask for just be on top of it, right? And if you are on top, and if you see that everything looks okay, so then leave it alone, right? There's no reason to say anything, because maybe they changed, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Who knows, right? But that's where the scenario is, to go ahead and to wait and see, right? And that's why I told you to do that, because there's a very easy thing to see if that's affecting your company right now, or your synagogue, or your finances, or whatever it is, right? By keeping an eye, and that's why I told you to do that. Okay, go ahead, Bonnie. You have a question, Bonnie Melamed.
Yes, hi. Question and comment. Question. I'm a little confused because I heard with if person A is speaking poorly about person B, that the person listening, say person C, whatever, should or should not tell the person being spoken about. Definitely not, if you do say not to say the person's name, but I thought I heard both. You shouldn't spread gossip. You shouldn't make the person being spoken about feel bad, or you should tell them, just not who was doing the talking.
So I'll just repeat.
And then
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
If somebody told me it's being spoken about that you do this, don't do this, or like this, or not like this, whatever, and I couldn't find out who it was, that would drive me crazy, because if we're all supposed to be working on ourselves, not for vengeance, I would rather say, Joe Schmo, I hear you've been saying this, and let me explain. I'm trying to work on myself, and whatever it is, because if somebody has an issue with me, I really, truly would rather them come to me in a respectful manner and tell me. So either there's a misconception or something I can clear up, or maybe truly it's something I should be working on myself. And I would appreciate knowing that if it's not something that's on my mind, like, oh, this is something I should work on. I come across to this or not enough this or whatever. So I was just saying, if any, like, you know, when somebody says, priority Yom Kippur of 5, you know, forgive me for anything. Okay, so that's like a blanket whitewash, you know, but if there's something specific, I would personally like to know so I can either clarify or work on that for myself.
Okay, so,
Just saying.
okay, great. So that's a great point. Let me just first clarify your first point, just to reiterate, make sure that I was clear. That regarding saying something to the person that was spoken about. So we said in a normal scenario, you should not. That is rechilas. There's no purpose for it, right? It's going to create animosity amongst people, and you should not do that. What you could do is, if you're the right person, if you're a friend or you're the right person, then you could go and say, hey, listen, I just wanted to let you know, this is being said about you. I would do it first by just investigating a little bit yourself, right? If you're a friend, and see if there's anything to it. If there's nothing to it and it's some random person saying something, just leave it alone and don't say anything, right? If there's something to it, then you do see it and you care about your friends, say, hey, listen, I just wanted to let you know, right? Someone said this about you. We all have our things, we all have our, and I know you don't mean it and whatever, but it does look in a certain way. And, if you want to work on it, I'd be happy to work on it with you, right? As a friend, but you have to know if you're that right person to do it. If you're not the right person to do it, you don't say anything, just leave it alone, right? Because 99% of the time, nothing's going to come out of it and there's no purpose. We said if there is something that will come out of it. If it's a work, if it's colleagues, if it's in the work, if it's you're going to lose respect amongst your coworkers, and therefore it can make a difference on the projects you get, right? It can make a difference on the, regarding, if to be able to get loans or medical or, other kind of whatever you're doing, or even in your own home, right? If it's something that, you're going to lose your status in shul, right? Let's say you're the gabbai or your other things, or you, right? Or you won't get because someone is saying something so severe, right? And it's a person that can make a difference, right? If he starts talking to other people, it's just the way he is or she is, right? So then once you consult a rabbi, because then there might be a toelis, and there's a purpose for the person to go ahead and confront that person, right, in a healthy manner, in a proper manner. That will be all part of what the rabbi would suggest. Hey, let's maybe put these two people together in a room with the rabbi before just telling the person randomly when to tell them, right? Because you don't want this person to then go ahead and start slandering that person, and you don't want that person to start screaming at that person, so how can you say this about me? Right? You don't want someone to do that, right? So it has to be done in a healthy manner, but then there might be a place for you to go ahead and tell the person who the person was, right? Now, regarding your second point, yes, of course we want to know who the person is. I also want to know who the person is, but part of working on ourselves is realizing that there's halacha, there's laws, right? And just because I want to know who the person is and I'll feel better, right, about knowing who the person is, that I could confront the person, that I could talk to the person, right, doesn't mean to say that your friend has the right to say that. Right, that's not necessarily toelis, right? There's no benefit from it, right? And you could think that you want to do that, but at the end of the day, deep inside, you're still going to have a animosity to that person that they're talking about that. So even if we feel that no, this will be healthier this way or whatever it is, right? You're deep inside, you're still going to have that animosity, still going to be upset about that person, right? And we have to learn to become bigger than that and say, listen, you know what? Doesn't make a difference who said it. If there's something to it, I have to work on it. If there's nothing to it, so then I don't care. So people are saying something. I have a thick enough skin. I have self-confidence with myself. I know what I'm doing. And if people talk and move on with my life, right? And that's something that we have to work on, right? And I'm talking about myself too. Something that we have to work on, right? To be able to, if there's something to it, I'll work on it. If there's nothing to it, so then move on. And so whoever said it didn't make a difference. There's nothing. So okay. So some people feel insecure by having to knock other people down. Right, like we spoke about 2 classes ago, I think. Right, that's one of the things of lashon hara. People need to knock other people down. So whoever it is, that's how they feel. Sorry, I feel bad for them. right? But just because it will make me feel better for 5 minutes by knowing who it is, right? Then you're going to eat yourself up afterwards. Why did the person? When did I see the person? Why did it? You're not going to feel better by knowing who the person is, right? And so therefore, one just has to work on themselves to make sure that they build themselves up in a way by saying, okay, either I have to work on myself, or I feel bad for that person that they have to knock other people down to build themselves up. Jim had a question. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, no, I had a comment. Who made that initial comment?
That was Bonnie Malamed.
Bonnie, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's human nature to want to know who did it, but so period. But it's probably better for ourselves to not draw away from the real opportunity here is to improve ourselves. And so rather than concentrate on who said it, by not knowing, it gives us more time and focus to concentrate on if we're doing something incorrectly and how we might correct it. But I agree with everything you said. It's human nature.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else want to add anything in?
Well, I'll just say, when I worked with kids some years ago, one of my favorite quotes was, if someone calls you a chair, it doesn't make you a chair, which is kind of silly and laughable, but
I love
if
it.
somebody's saying something about you that's totally absurd, then just, you're not a chair, you're not whatever they are. And if there is truth in it, what they're saying, learn from it and adapt and change.
I love it. I'll probably use that one time. If you're not
I've got lots of
I like that. Thank you, Judy.
All right.
Okay, so I'm just gonna wrap up the class today with a fascinating quote. Hopefully next week will actually, the growth of humility is very powerful, but we'll start with that hopefully next week. I just want to wrap up today's class with this quote. If on the bottom of page 239, it's quoted in the Migdal Chassid, Shlomo Mebel's. It says like this: a false person considers himself insignificant and considers everyone else as insignificant as himself. All right. Humility is not, as we said before, humility is not saying I'm nothing and everybody is nothing. Right? That's not humility. Right? Humility is realizing how much more of an obligation I have, how much more of a responsibility I have. When you realize that you have obligations, you have a responsibility to your family, to yourself, to your community, right, to the Jewish people at large, right, then you realize how much more you have to accomplish, right? And therefore, you put yourself in your own place, right? You could be sitting on the dais, right? You could be sitting in the back of the room, right? You could be someone that gets a plaque. You could be someone that doesn't get a plaque, right? Humility is something internal, right, of how you personally feel. And when you think that other people are insignificant also, that is a first sign that you have false humility. I don't care if you're sitting in the back, if your hands are like this, right, whatever it is, right? That is the first sign that there is a lack in you and your humility, because humility is about you. It's about working on yourself. It's not what other people are. On the contrary, you have to look at every other person as great as they are, right? As the best, that you have a responsibility to help out and to use your talents and to use your resources and to grow and get closer to God and to make those hard decisions to better the Jewish people, to better the world, to better our community, right? To better yourself with your relationship with God. That's true humility. Right? Realizing your responsibilities with the talents that you have, not necessarily always putting yourself down. And by putting yourself down, you're also putting other people down. You're automatically humbling yourself by realizing how much more you have to do and how much more you have to accomplish and how much more you have a responsibility because of the gifts that God gave you. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today.